Hello everyone, welcome to Tespert Mba Prep. In this session, we'll have a look at the title of the passage, the central idea, and the summary of the passage. So, what is meant by title? See, in simple terms, title is the heading of the passage, right? And the purpose of the title is to introduce the content of any passage in a concise manner so that the reader will be eager to go through the passage. The title definitely persuades the reader, right? It influences the reader. So, what is the composition of a title? The title contains the keywords of the passage, and the title shouldn't be specific to some paragraph of any passage. It shouldn't be restricted to a specific paragraph of that passage, right? It shouldn't be specific. It cannot be specific, and the title cannot be too broad so as to cover the topic of the passage as well as other related topics. And as we know, it acts as the header to the passage. And needless to say, a title won't include details about the main subject, and it's not a complete sentence. It is more like a heading of a news article. If you observe the news articles, the heading of the news articles won't be in a holistic way, in a complete form. So the same applies with the title. So we will take examples of the title, the central idea, and the summary. We will take some examples, and it shouldn't be catchy, and the title must be very interesting, right? Although this is not a necessary condition, but it must be interesting, it must be catchy, right? Let's take this example. You can pause the video and read this passage. Hope you read. So if we go through the passage revolves around the early life of a prince known as Siddhartha, and also it tells us about the journey from being a prince to finally becoming aware of the harsh realities of life. So if we observe the passage, we can say that the key words of the passage are Siddhartha, Gautam Buddha, and also the four sides, right? So these are the three keywords of the passage. So what can be a good title, a suitable title of this passage? A suitable title of the passage must include the main points of the passage. Here, as we already know, the main words of the passage are Siddhartha, the second one is Gautam Buddha, and the third one is the four sides. So the transition from Siddhartha to Gautam Buddha, this can be a suitable title, or the four sides, Siddhartha's awakening. This can also be a suitable title. You can frame that in your own words, but it must be relevant to the relevant with the passage, and also the keywords must also be included in that title. So central idea. The central idea of a passage is generally a single sentence, and this explains the purpose and can be termed as the essence of the passage. If we observe any central idea of any passage, it actually summarizes the whole passage without elaborating on any particular aspect, without elaborating on any particular paragraph. So, what can we say? The central idea will essentially state the topic of the passage and also the meaning of the passage in a single sentence, or in a 10 to 15 words, right? So what are the features of the central idea? The central idea states the purpose of the passage, correct? And it is a single sentence that should be grammatically coherent, right? And it cannot contain a description of the contents of the passage. The central idea must be relevant, but each and every description of the passage shouldn't be embedded in that central idea. In that case, that won't be a central idea of the passage. And also, the central idea cannot be a sentence taken directly from the passage. We have to pick up the keywords of each and every para and we can form the central idea of the whole passage. But we cannot pick up a direct statement, a direct sentence from the passage or from a particular paragraph. And also, the central idea incorporates all the key ideas, all the notions mentioned in the passage. So nothing will be missed in that central idea. So you can pause the video and just go through the passage. Hope you have gone through that passage. So what does this passage tell all about? The passage gives us the basic definition of the concept of karma, right? So it also talks about the similarities in its interpretations in different religions. So what can be the central idea of the passage? See, the author attempts to explain the concept of karma and states its similar interpretations and subtle differences across various religious philosophies. So if you observe this central idea, this is nowhere directly picked from the passage given here, but it's the combination of all the main points of the passage and it's represented in a meaningful manner, right? And this central idea gives us the overall idea of the passage. Let's move on to summary. See, summary is essentially it's like a brief presentation of the contents of any passage. Pick up any summary of a particular passage that definitely contains all the key ideas mentioned in the passage and also all their links. So a passage, a summary, can have multiple sentences depending on the number of ideas, number of notions that have been discussed in particular passage. And also there is no fixed rule about the length of summary, but it should be brief and it shouldn't contain any irrelevant information, right? All the information that is present in the summary must be relevant, and it may contain more than one sentence, yes, and it depicts the content of the passage, true. It covers all the paragraphs of the passage, absolutely, and it shouldn't contain any examples mentioned in the passage. So if there is any example mentioned in the passage, we shouldn't include that example in that summary of the passage. The same applies with the central idea. If any passage has any example, that example shouldn't be included in the central idea, and also it shouldn't be included in the summary of that particular passage. And summary shouldn't contain any elaboration of an idea presented in the passage. Okay, so if there is any idea or one or two ideas in the passage, those ideas shouldn't be elaborated, right? And also the passage shouldn't introduce a new idea that is not contained in the passage. So any irrelevant information shouldn't be there in the summary of the particular passage. So pause the video and try to go through this passage and identify the summary of this passage. Hope you had gone through this. So the key idea of the passage is the general explanation of the concept of thought experimenting, and the passage is all about thought experimentation. So we can summarize this passage as given. Thought experimentation is an age-old process employed to explain the reality by using hypothetical situations that are solved with the help of subjective reasoning. So if we observe this summary, this model summary, we didn't elaborate any idea of the passage, and also all the words of this summary are a part of this passage, and each and everything is relevant with this passage, right?